I say good morning. Good morning to each and every last one of you all. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. This morning, I'm going to go in a different direction from what I would always speak on this morning. Something that's been on my spirit, something that's a little bit more personal to me, something that I have experienced. And that is teenage abuse, just abuse, period, abuse in general. And it hits much closer to home for me because my son that was murdered, he endured abuse in his relationship. Things may get a little graphic in the things that I may say, but I won't say too much about the case. However, I will tell you from my point of view and tell you what abuse could possibly look like, and maybe you don't know. And I'm speaking from my experience. I endured abuse for a very long time. No one knows. A lot of people tell me I don't look like what I've been through. And that's true because it was only through the grace of God that I was able to overcome it, especially when the Lord is with you. He said he will never leave you nor forsake you. So I'm going to go in a little further. I just want to say, first of all, there is never a reason for abuse, and abuse is never okay. I don't care what form of abuse it may be, abuse is never okay. We talk about abuse when it comes from a woman being in an abused relationship. We talk about that. But what's really more so quiet and kept quiet is men who deal with abuse. Some people probably think there's some women out here that are not abusers. It's more so camouflaged, or some people look at it like, well, what did he do to make her do that? Or what did she do to make him do that? There's no reason for abuse ever. And I mean ever. There's no reason for it. In my son's situation, I think back to the things that he shared with me, of the things that he'd been through or he was going through. And I understand relationships have their ups and downs. They have their issues. I understand that. But when it comes to someone trying to demasculate or try to tear down a man's manhood, or just downing them, or vice versa, a man trying to do the same towards a woman, that's emotional abuse. Now, even in my son's situation, and it goes back further than that. And the reason why I say that is because my son wasn't abusive, although he's seen me go through abuse. And he was the youngest of my children. But he's seen me go through abuse. He's seen me go through it. So I've always taught my children, I have two boys and a girl. I always taught them, you never put your hands on a female. I don't care what she's done. And if you got to do that, it's not meant for you to be with them. Anytime two people have to fight, or that male or that female feels that they have to defend themselves against that person, it's time to get out. And when I say teenage abuse, I was 18 years old when I first experienced abuse from my kid's father. Ended up being my husband 14 and a half years. I was still growing at that time. I was a kid. I was a teenager. At first, abuse comes off like, well, with me, it came off when he was starting to be possessive. And I was like, oh, he really loves me. Oh, this is love. Oh, he really cares about me. And then I began to see changes. And I was probably 19, maybe 20 at this time. And I come to the realization, this isn't fun anymore. This is not what I want. I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't do certain things. I couldn't hang out with my friends. He had a problem with everything that I did. He tried to isolate me. You don't need to go here. You don't need to go there. Um, those are the things that I dealt with. And like I said, I gotten to the point where I was saying, this isn't fun anymore. I don't like this. I don't like this type of attention. And then I began to evaluate it within myself, like, I know this man loves me, but what kind of love does he have for me? That's the question I began to ask next. Because a person can have a possessive love, an obsessive love, a controlling love. There's many different types of love languages that people operate in. And you have to be aware and you have to know about those things. You have to be discerning in those things. Hold on one second. But you have to be discerning in those things. You have to understand those things. You have to understand what it looks like. There's a such thing as financial abuse. There's a such thing of all of those things. But what I was dealing with was emotional, mental, verbal, physical, just many different types, forms of abuse. And I went through it for 14 and a half long years. Someone repeatedly putting their hands on you and telling you, I did this because you made me do it. No one can make you do anything. So I fast forward into today because that's what my son, he saw his father and I go through those things. And my kids, they had became a norm for them. But I always taught my children, if you got to put your hands on someone, you don't need to be with them. So even my son's situation, he was dealing with some things like that. And the things became so familiar to me, where he would complain about how he was always being talked down upon, telling him he's not a man, he's not a real man, he's a bum, he's no good, no one would ever want him. Being told those different things, that's abuse. That's emotional and verbal abuse. My son went through the things of this person telling him, your family doesn't love you. Nobody's going to like you. Nobody's going to love you. I'm going to be sure that no one is going to want to mess with you ever, or no one's going to like you. That's abuse, and that's control. And those are some of the things that my son dealt with. And some things were physical. Some things were totally physical, where this person was putting their hands on him, but he wasn't returning that. He was trying to get away from it. And to the point where he dealt with this person destroying his property. To any time somebody snatches your phone or anything that belongs to you, and they take it and they throw it, and they're doing it out of rage because they're upset at you, that's not okay. That's abuse. That's abuse. And there should always be boundaries set in a relationship. Healthy boundaries. There should be always boundaries set. And that's what my son dealt with. He dealt with that. Now I'm going a little deeper here. My son was about maybe 14, 15 years old, and we went to this church congregation. And at this particular time, both of my boys, they were both prophesied to. But my son in particular, the prophecy came about him being and having the spirit of Samson. Now, when we think about Samson, you're like, okay, Samson was strong. He thought he carried his hair and his strength, but he didn't realize his strength came from the Lord. But he was this real strong guy. He was the strongest man known to mankind, and Delilah and everyone else thought he had his strength in his hair. And Delilah, she was not really bride, but she was allowing the Philistines to use her to find out what Samson's where strength came from. And she asked him 2 or 3 times where strength came from. The first 2 times he lied to her. And she just kept asking him and kept asking him. He had, he had given her his heart. He was in love with her, her beauty. And we all know this, the story of Samson. Samson, his weakness were women. Now, with my son, that was his weakness. I'm sorry to say, men love women. That's the way it should be. Although you should be married, because God created sex for marriage. But just to bring it back on course here, my son, he loved women. And he always said, or he had just recently said, that a woman was going to be his downfall. And getting involved with the wrong woman, and you lay with her, and vice versa, a woman can lay with the wrong man. Though that is souls entering, sexual soul ties, they exist. It's real. You begin to take on their characteristics, take on their bad ways, their evil ways, their thoughts. You begin to be more like that person, because everything that's going into that's entering into that person's body. And with a woman, you are entering into her. You are entering in. That's deep. And that's not for play. That's not a play area. That's not a jumbo gym. It's not a playground. It's a sexual organ, but it's intimate, and sexual soul ties really do exist. So a lot of people probably don't worry about, or they probably feel like they can use protection by catching STDs and things like that. You can't relinquish yourself from catching sexual soul ties, because sexual soul ties is going to happen. And it's very detrimental to our soul, because it begins to change who we are as a person, who God had intended for us to be. Now, let me get back to the story of Delilah. Some people, and Delilah does not just come in a female form, it can come in a male form, just like the Jezebel spirit. We know Delilah was cunning. Delilah was deceitful. She was deceitful. She was cunning. She was a liar. But then when you think about the Jezebel spirit is a woman who comes to control everything that you do. She may be a whoremonger, or a male, may be whoremongering, liar, always trying to turn people against you. That can come in a male or female form. And the medical term for that is narcissistic. Being able to understand what a narcissist is, you really have to look it up, because there's many different types of narcissists. We have the grandiose. I'm not going to get off into that. That's a whole nother story. But I want to stick with the situation at hand. We have to understand the relationships that we are in, the people we are dealing with, the people we are allowing to come inside of us, or who we go and enter into. Because sexual soul ties, it exists. It exists. God made no mistake when he created the woman's body, that sexual organ, that muscle. He made no mistake about it. A lot of people will probably say, yes, they love sex. It's a great feeling. The thing about it is, you have to be careful, because it's not intended for everybody to just go out here and just be with anybody. Just casual sex. Sexual soul ties exist. But like I said in the beginning, that some people don't talk about, and I'm talking about males, they don't really talk about the abuse that they deal with in a relationship. They don't talk about that. And it's not really talked about. And I'm wondering why. But I'm talking to you all on the behalf of my son, because he tried to get out. He tried to get out. He knew it was unhealthy. He kept saying, Mom, I'm trying to get out. Mom, I don't know how. Mom, I don't know how. And I said to him, son, stop having sex with her. Sexual soul ties are real. But we have to abstain from sex. And that's the reason why the Lord tells us to wait on him. Wait on him to choose our mate, our spouse. Because first of all, when we cross that line of sexual intercourse and God intended it for marriage, that's one of the booby traps, we will call it, or maybe one of the repercussions that we have to go through in our disobedience to God. We end up with things we don't want. We end up with things we don't like. And to take it even a step further, when you're out there having casual sex, after you finish doing what you're doing, you begin to look at that person. After you've gotten your rocks off, you begin to look at that person. And you begin to evaluate, like, I did this? For what? We have to understand. I'm keeping it a buck. But we have to understand that we can't just be jumping in and out of bed with people. We can't. We cannot do that. Because that's not what God intended. That's not what our bodies are for. It's not a playground. We have to consult God in everything that we do. Or we end up with people that may carry the Delilah spirit or the Jezebel spirit. Those are two dangerous spirits that men and women can come across. But in my son's case, he was dealing with a spirit that was dangerous. He was dealing with a spirit that was dangerous. My son had told me in 2019, he came back from a trip to Florida with this person. And he came to me and he said, Mama, I had a dream. And he said, it was so scary. He said, I was so scared. He said this person was walking and he said he seen this long dress that flowed left to right, almost like seduction. And he said he ran to catch up with this person. And this person had a veil over their face. He said he went to lift the veil. And he said he didn't see that person's face. He said it was a demon. It was a demon. That was a warning for him. That was a warning for him that he didn't take heed. He knew it was scary because he said he just was fearful. He was fearful. And that's why we don't be with people that we know aren't for us. We know it, but we continue to indulge in sex and oral sex, things that we're not supposed to do, things that can be overrated. In my past, like I said, I dealt with abuse. After I got off that 14.5-year marriage, I ended up meeting someone else after that. He was everything I wanted in a man. But it was just something just did not sit right with me. This guy was shaving one particular time. And I'm not asleep. This isn't a dream for me. This is reality. And I'm not asleep. And I'm in the bathroom. I was so infatuated with him. That's not love, it's lust. We either dealing with lust or infatuation. But I was watching him in the mirror because to me he was so handsome and he was shaving. I was so infatuated with him. But in the mirror, I could not see his reflection. But the reflection that I did see, it was a demon face. It like contorted. And I saw it and I looked and I shook my head and I blinked my eyes and I was like, what did I just see? I couldn't believe it. Now, mind you, when people used to tell me they used to see demons, I never believed it. I never believed it because I didn't think it could happen. I didn't think it was true. I never thought I would be able to see anything like that. But when the Lord allowed me to see that, that's when the warnings began to come in. And they came in like a flood. because the Lord was trying to get my attention. Did I leave right then and there? Nope. I didn't leave. I was still with him years after that. And the Lord was sending his warring angels to warn me. The angels warred up against the enemy that was trying to come up against me. Thank God, after 4.5 years, I finally got out. Everything I was prophesied about that this guy would try to do happened. It happened. And I didn't believe it at first because this guy worshiped the ground that I walked on. This man was a protector. This man was a provider. This man was a whoremonger. Now, you got to pay attention to that spirit. But other than that, I overlooked it. I played myself. And how I played myself was I tolerated things that I knew I shouldn't have been tolerating. I, so to speak, I kind of juggled with my worth and what I wanted to deal with. And that there was nothing I wanted to deal with. But I thank God I got out. And like I said, there was nothing this man wouldn't do for me. Nothing. And when I was prophesied to that this man would try to kill me being immature in my walk with Christ, I went to him and asked him, would you ever try to kill me? It's not like the enemy's going to say, yep, I'm trying to kill you. That's my goal. But me being immature in my walk with Christ, me being immature with my faith, being immature in everything, in my thoughts, I went and I asked him. And I believed that he would never try to kill me. And I was wrong. I was totally wrong. I say to the men of today, if that relationship does not fit you, if there's abuse in that relationship, any form of abuse, get out. I say to women, if there's any sign of any abuse, get out. It is so much happening in this world where there is death on every corner. People being murdered. Now you hear about it on the news. Now so many women are just being murdered. Some people will probably say why. It's not a reason why, but you got to look at people's frame of mind. A lot of people got demons and allowing demons to operate in them. Evil is just going on. This world is wicked. But we have to understand that when we do things out of the will of God, that is one of the things that could possibly happen while we're in our disobedience to God. God intended sex for married people. That's what he intended it for it to be enjoyable, for it to be shared between two people that love one another. It's a sign of intimacy. And it's okay for your souls to lock in at that point in time because you're married. God said in his word, what God has put together, let no man put asunder. What God has put together. But sometimes we as people, we pair ourselves with people that we shouldn't even be with. And if you are not happy or comfortable or content in your relationship, get out. If it's some things that you don't see that's befitting for you in that relationship, this goes for males and females, get out. It could be something so small, and it may not even be abuse. But my thing is, you have to work or date toward marriage. If there's somebody you don't see yourself with, don't waste their time or yours. Get out. But this is me mainly speaking on abuse. Abuse is never okay. And anytime you have to defend yourself physically towards someone, it's not the relationship for you. It's not the marriage for you. Don't go any further. Don't ignore it. It's not going to go away. It's going to become more prevalent. It's going to be more boastful. It's going to become more controlling. It's going to start to stick out like a sore thumb. It's no longer going to be hidden. But in my son's situation, my son lost his life. Not by the hands of that person, but by the hands of a male that that person was with. Anytime someone breaks up with you and go back together, and breaks up with you and go back together with you so that they can do their own thing, that's a form of abuse, and it's not healthy. And that's what my son dealt with. That's manipulation. Manipulation, that's a form of mental abuse. It's not okay. But like I said, my son lost his life even before he can get out. And when I think about when he was prophesied to when he was 14, 15 years old of having the spirit of Samson, I fast forwarded to the year 2022. And I realized what my son was dealing with. And I seen it from a spiritual side of things. No, he wasn't perfect. He was a 25-year-old doing 25-year-old things. Was he abusive? No. I know this because I know. I think back from the things he's told me or shared with me. I look back at our text messages, the things he endured, the things he went through. And I just think back to the times my son would come to me crying. Mama, I can't take this no more. Mama, I can't do this no more. Anytime a person tells you, your mama and them don't love you, your people don't love you, don't nobody like you, that's a form of abuse. Get out. And my son didn't get a chance to get out. He didn't get that chance. He lost his life. He lost his life. Because he didn't know his worth. He didn't know his worth. So again, ladies and gentlemen, for the males, if any woman is there and they're continually trying to down you, trying to take your manhood, to demasculate you, that's abuse. Get out. To the ladies, if any man tries to belittle your womanhood and tell you you're not a real woman and try to judge you or compare you to other women and down you constantly, get out. That's not the man for you. Vice versa. That's not the man for you, and that's not the woman for you. Get out. Get out. Men need to speak up on abuse. They need to speak up on the things they don't want to deal with. Because you love a person, you don't have to deal with certain things. That's where healthy boundaries come in at. And if that's something that you can't deal with, be real enough to tell that person, I can't do this. This is not working for me. It may be working for you, but it doesn't work for me. And that person doesn't have to be a bad person. Just that you're a good person, that person a good person. You guys just probably not meant for each other. But I think abuse with men should and needs to be spoken on even the more. Because we're living in a day and age where it seems like the tables are turning. Women are not women anymore. Women act like men. They act masculine. And we're not even talking about on just a homosexual tip. We're talking about the woman feeling like she doesn't need a man. She's independent. She doesn't need anybody. And she's handling everything. And then she downs a man for not doing anything. But I say to you again, abuse with men needs to be discussed a lot more. Women are always told that they are worth it. They don't have to go through that they're the prize. Well, guess what? Men, you're worth it as well. You're a prize to someone. You are a prize too. Just like women feel like they're a gift to men, men, you could be a gift to women. Men, you deserve it too. God bless you.